All right. Thank you for joining this Tenant Cloud presentation. If you can hear my voice, if you can go ahead and hit that little emoji button on the bottom right hand side of your screen under the reaction tab. Awesome. Thank you. That tells me everybody can hear. Every now and then there's technical issues, so just want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right, great. So today's presentation is going to be 365 days of excellence and how to automate routines with property management software. And the reason that we are doing this particular webinar at this time of year is because as we go into the new year, we are going to be focusing on how to help people streamline their operations and make things much easier going into the new year and to improve your operations in general. And the fewer things that slip through the cracks on a day-to-day basis through something like automation, the better it is for everybody. The better experience it is, not just for the property manager, but also for your tenant, your service pros, and your owners. A few things before we get started. Just want to make sure that I point out that we do have a TenantCloud blog that has hundreds of articles that are helpful. They're all related to the property management industry, but it covers a lot of topics, whether it's relating to cleaning and turning rentals over after a tenant moves out, or if it's related to the application process and how to streamline that, and a whole lot more. We also have a podcast. It is the Tenant Cloud podcast. And I believe we are now through something like 4 or 5 seasons of that podcast. If you have not had a chance to listen to it, go ahead and check that out. You can listen to it anywhere there are podcasts available. So whether that is the Spotify podcast platform, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and so on. We also have a TenantCloud YouTube channel, which has hundreds of videos. Many of them are frequently asked questions videos showing you how to do certain things in the TenantCloud platform. We try to keep that as updated as possible, although we do a lot of updates in the software. So don't be scared if some of the videos you're watching don't exactly look like what you're seeing in the actual system. We do a lot of updates, and the place that we actually keep up to date all the time is our help center, which is at tenantcloud.com/FAQ for frequently asked questions. And those step-by-step instructional articles feature screenshots, step-by-step instructions. Oftentimes, they also have videos embedded in them showing you how to do a lot of stuff as well. And of course, we have our support team through instant chat. If you go to our help center, if we have an instant chat team member available, you will find them in the bottom right-hand corner of that window. There will be a little bubble icon saying that so-and-so is available to chat. You can also call us at our phone number, which is listed in the footer of our website. You can put in a support ticket. If you are logged into your TenantCloud account, you can click the support button in the bottom left-hand side and submit a support ticket. And you can also email us at support@tenantcloud.com. So we have a lot of resources that hopefully you find beneficial and will help you to better understand how to use the platform. If you are relatively new to the Tenant platform or you are considering it, there's always a learning curve with any new software that you start using. And so our goal by providing all of these resources is to try to help you get through that learning curve as quickly as possible, because once you have it mastered, it's a breeze going forward after that. Last but not least, if you want to make sure that you are invited to all of these presentations in the future or any other special events that TenantCloud may host, definitely make sure that you are subscribed to our email list. You can do that by going to tenantcloud.com/blog and hit the subscribe button, enter your email address, and that will make sure that you are on our marketing email list going forward. We do not spam your inbox with a bunch of nonsense. We only email you every so often with marketing content such as invitations to this event and any other helpful information as it relates to the property management industry and tips and tricks and how to use the software better and so on. A lot of these webinars, I like to introduce the webinar with the fact that it is not rocket science. Property management is not rocket science. And as I'm sure many of you already know, and the TenantCloud property management software likewise is also not rocket science. However, it is beneficial to get refreshers every so often because a lot of times we get busy or we get into a rut or a specific way of doing things, and we may neglect things, forget things. And it's always helpful to get reminders on best practices and all of the software capabilities, things we may have forgotten or overlooked, and so on. And so, in fact, after this webinar presentation is over, I'm actually going to go join another webinar in the marketing industry to learn stuff that I am pretty well versed in. But again, it's always good to get refreshers. So as soon as this webinar is over, I'm going to be jumping on as an attendee in another one. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to share the presentation with you. Now, this presentation is less of a step-by-step instructional because, like we've covered, that exists on the Tenant platform. We have a lot of resources for that. This is more of a presentation to cover the things that the system can do, an overview, best practices, the way that other property management companies have implemented some of these things to streamline their process and to not as allow as many things to slip through the cracks on a day-to-day basis, and allow them to do the things that really matter in running their business on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. We try to keep these presentations under 30 minutes. I am awful at doing that. So I totally understand if you need to jump off the presentation. You can access the recording at a later time via the same link you used to join, or you can also access this presentation on our TenantCloud YouTube channel. We typically update it within or upload it within a few business days after this has ended. And that way you can come back and revisit it or share it with people on your team who may need to watch it at a later time. But again, I totally understand if you need to jump off at any point in the presentation. And I believe I already mentioned this in the chat, but if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the chat thread. We will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end, just for the sake of time, so we're not interrupting the flow of the presentation. And if your question is not answered for whatever reason, please do not hesitate to reach out to our support or our sales team. Our team is more than happy to assist you. So getting started, just want to make sure everybody can see this screen. If you can go ahead and do me a huge favor and hit the little emoji icon button if you can see the presentation PDF that I am sharing here. Awesome. Glad everybody can see it. Fantastic. All right, so section 1, we're going to cover real-life examples of automation success. Section 2, we're going to cover additional ways to streamline processes with automation. And section 3, we're going to cover pro tips for success. We're going to actually have a lot of real-life examples scattered throughout this presentation. Automating daily routines with property management software is a game changer. Anybody who has been doing property management for any amount of time, even as early as probably 2010, you know that not a lot of stuff was automated and a lot of stuff was a manual process. And it was easy for things to slip through the cracks. There was a lot of manual tracking, a lot of paperwork. You had cabinets full of files and folders, and there were different ways of organizing them. Well, now all of that can pretty much be done through software, and that is what TenantCloud does. Is it unlocks the full potential of automation features to help you be more successful. Rent collection. Of course, this is the number one thing that everybody does in property management is they collect rent, and oftentimes it can be time consuming. And TenantCloud allows for automated rent reminders, online payment options, and reducing hassle for tenants and property managers. A property owner who struggled with late rent payments, they did so because identifying late payments was a manual process. A lot of people actually come to our software and many other softwares from manual systems where they were using either paper tracking or Excel documents and spreadsheets and the like, or they were using multiple systems and trying to cobble them all together to collect rent each month. And they have one tool for this and one tool for that and one tool for that. And so what TenantCloud does is it takes all of those aspects of rent collection and puts them into a single platform. So now you can do things like automate the fact that an invoice is published. Your tenant gets a notification saying, hey, your invoice has been published, and you can set that for 5, 10, 15 days prior to the invoice being due. You can then have another automated notice saying, hey, your rent is due today. And then you can have another notice that automatically generates by the system saying, hey, your rent is late and now you're going to get charged a late fee. And then they get a notification automatically every time a new invoice is published saying, hey, a late fee has been published to your account and now you owe late fees. And so all of those things are automated. You don't even have to think about it. It's a set it, forget it. It's a true set it, forget it feature where you just don't have to even think about it. The late fees automatically get generated. The grace period automatically happens. There's nothing that you have to do in that process that is a manual process. And that makes your job easier as a property manager. It also helps the tenant to be notified, and it creates an aspect of transparent communication and immediate communication, actually, because it's live. As soon as things are happening in the system, the tenant is getting notified. And so it makes it better for the tenant, better for you as a property manager, and the owner is happy because all of that automation makes things streamlined, and it makes it a lot easier to collect rent, and you spend a lot less time doing collections, which also means you tend to get money faster, which of course every owner of a rental property likes, right? All right, so we'll go on to the next one. TenantCloud makes handling maintenance requests a breeze. Automation includes task assignments, progress tracking, scheduling appointments, providing security codes, and a whole lot more. For example, a property management firm that I worked with had a surge in maintenance requests during a busy season. We were actually renovating over 700 apartments, and the lease up happened much quicker than anybody anticipated. And it was a relatively new property management company that was a little bit on a smaller scale. And so we had to quickly adapt to what was taking place in real life. And part of that was putting maintenance requests on autopilot as much as possible. A mistake that a lot of property managers make, especially new ones, is they allow tenants to text you, they allow tenants to call you, they allow tenants to send emails, they allow tenants to contact them in many different ways to submit maintenance requests. And what happens is a lot of things get lost because your maintenance guy comes to you or your maintenance girl comes to you and says, hey, where's that ticket that you said you had for so and so at such and such apartment? I can't find it. And then you're scrambling looking through emails and texts and voicemails and trying to look for the information. And they're like, I went into the apartment, I can't find anything wrong. And they go in there and it was about an electrical outlet, and none of the outlets that they're checking, nothing's wrong with them. So then they come back to you and say, or they call you and say, hey, what outlet was that? And now you have to scramble and find where that ticket or that request was submitted. And so that was something that we were encountering with a rapid lease up. And so we made sure that we needed to have all of those tenants communicate through one place. And so we started directing tenants to submit all of their maintenance requests through the maintenance ticket platform. And that way, all the information is in one spot, and we could make sure that anytime there were questions that arose about that particular request, we would go directly to the maintenance ticket portal, and there it was. It streamlined everything and made things so much easier. So, one of the things that we highly recommend doing now, keep in mind that every lease contract and every state may be a little bit different in how tenants are allowed to submit maintenance tickets. For example, in the state of Texas, you can require that tenants submit it in writing, but you cannot necessarily dictate how it needs to be submitted in writing. So, for example, if they want to bring in a physical letter or send in an email or send you a certified letter, you have to accept that as a maintenance ticket. So, we would automatically then do is take that information that we received and we would put it into the TenantCloud portal. So, we would make sure that even if we received these requests from outside of the TenantCloud system, that we immediately put it into the TenantCloud system or whatever software we were using at the time to make sure that those tickets are all being tracked and all the information is in one place. Next, streamlining communication. Effective communication is absolutely crucial. TenantCloud offers features like property message board, TC Messenger for uh, offers features like property message board and TC Messenger for mass communications, newsletters, and announcements. For example, I recall a property manager who struggled to keep all tenants informed about upcoming events and uh, policy changes. And by utilizing TenantCloud's sorry, one second. I see some comments saying that they can't see the current slide. If you can see the current slide that says streamlining communication, can you hit the emoji button on the right-hand corner? If you can see streamlining communication. Okay, cool. It looks like most people can see the slides, but let me go ahead and switch this up. I'm going to go ahead and change this to an actual screen share. So bear with me one second while I go ahead and update that. That should resolve the issue here. Seems like some people can see it and some people can't. So hopefully this solves it for everybody. Okay, can you see my screen now? Okay, great. So the only downside to this is I won't be able to see your comments or anything once I switch the screen here to the presentation, but hopefully everybody is able to see it. Again, if not, I do apologize. Maybe some people encountering some type of technical issues locally. In that case, you may want to just view the presentation once the recording is available for you after it has ended. So again, I'm going to change the screen. There we go. Awesome. All right. So the presentation here, scroll down. All right. So streamlining communication. Effective communication is absolutely crucial. Tenant Cloud offers things like the property message board and TC Messenger for mass communications and newsletters and announcements. And so a lot of times what happens is similar to the incoming maintenance requests is that there are ways that you can communicate with tenants, right? You can communicate via email lists, you can communicate via text message, via bulk text message to your tenants and other contacts. But what happens is you typically have to keep manual track of all of that information, or you have to routinely update it. And so the Tenant Cloud system allows you to communicate through the property message board to only active tenants. It's automatically updated every time you move an old tenant out and move a new tenant in, every time you change lease, every time you make any change in the system, it automatically updates all of the information so that when you send out a property message or you send out a message or you're trying to send a message to a tenant, it's all going through channels where everything is automatically updated and you don't have to worry about manually keeping email lists and text lists like all updated at all the same time. And so that eliminates a lot of room for error and miscommunication, thinking that you sent something to somebody when they actually never received it. It's also helpful for things like events such as right now we're in winter, right? Or fall for some people, winter for others. And there's things like freeze notices that you might want to send out to make sure that people are taking proper precautions at the property for any potential freeze coming up. Maybe you have a community event coming up. Maybe you are doing inspections at your property and you want to just mass notify everybody that you are going to be coming through on these dates at these times, etc. And those are all things that you can do through the Tenant Cloud system utilizing the property message board and the TC Messenger tool. Not to mention, you can streamline communication not just with your tenants, but also with your service pros. So people like your maintenance techs or local contractors that you use on a regular basis, like a handyman or an electrician or somebody like that. You can communicate with them through TC Messenger, and everything is kept in one place. You have a historical record of all communications, any maintenance tickets you've assigned to them, and also to your team members. If you have team members on your team, you can communicate with team members through the Tenant Cloud system through TC Messenger. and you have this historical record of your communications with your tenants or or with your team members or any tasks that you've assigned to them. You can set up reminders for them so that they know, hey, so and so, you need to remember to do this thing at this time on this day. And all of that can be done on a pretty automated basis. And it streamlines everything just to make it a lot easier for you, your team members, your tenants, and even your owners and service providers, because you can also message your owners through the Tenant Cloud system. So if they have questions about owner distributions or contributions or specific expenses or a report that they were taking a look at, they can message you through the Tenant Cloud system, and it just makes things a lot easier. And so a property manager who I know struggled with all of that. And once they adopted a feature to where it allowed all of this communication to take place, where not only was it automated, but it also consolidated to a single place where they could go to rather than texts and emails and calls and voicemails, it just made their life so much easier. Document management and compliance. This one is extremely important. A property manager I know years ago had a scenario where they faced legal challenges during court hearings. I won't go into details, but it was largely came down to documentation that was either inadequate or completely missing because the system that they were using at the time was simply not tracking that information properly. And as a result, they ended up in some pretty hot water. And so it is extremely important. Something as simple as when a tenant pays rent, that the tenant automatically gets issued a receipt of some time with a date, stamp, where the transaction or how the transaction took place, and so on, what payment method they use to make the payment. That information is extremely important. You need to be able to track that type of information and document it. And then you need to be able to present it when you need to, because there will be a time for every property manager on this call where you will have to present some type of documentation to somebody in some position of authority to back up the argument that you are making. And so it's extremely important that you have a tool that does that, that it is not a manual process. And that is what Tenant Cloud does. That is one of the things that Tenant Cloud does very well, is tracking that information that you need. And again, there will be a day that every property manager will end up needing that documentation. So when a tenant pays rent, it's automated. They automatically get a receipt basically stating, this is how you paid, this is the method you used, this is the time you made the payment, this is the date you made the payment, this invoice you paid with this payment method, and so on. And all of that information is also tracked on the property manager's side. So again, extremely important. Maintenance tickets, another hot topic for any property manager, because tenants get out of leases if maintenance tickets are not resolved in a timely fashion. Almost every single state has laws on the books that are allow a tenant to take legal action if particular types of maintenance requests are not handled in a timely fashion. And so automating that process, documenting it in writing, and tracking the process from start to finish is vital. And any time that you can eliminate miscommunication or lack of communication in the maintenance ticket progress is awesome. And it does wonders for everybody involved, you and the tenant. So, for example, when a tenant submits a maintenance request, you get an automated notification saying, hey, you got a maintenance request. That maintenance request, you move it from new to in progress. The tenant gets notified that that ticket went from new to in progress. And when it goes from in progress to resolved, the tenant gets notified. I cannot count how many times over the years in property management where we would have somebody mark a ticket as resolved, only to have the tenant contact us later that day or a day or two later or whatever, however long later, saying, why is this marked resolved? I still have the same problem. And whether it was because of the tenant's miscommunication or maybe the maintenance tech didn't understand or it was documented wrong, whatever it was, it could be the tenant said that it was outlet on the left side of the room when they meant to say it's the right side. But the fact of the matter is, if you have a software system that automatically documents all of that in writing and everybody's getting notified in real time of what's taking place without you even having to think about it, it eliminates a lot of that miscommunication, because now the tenant can, when they get home, they've already gotten that notification saying this it was resolved. But then when they walk in the door and it's not resolved, they can immediately go back and message you through the Tenant Cloud system and say, "Hey, I got a notification this resolved, but it's still an issue." And then maybe they'll see on the ticket, "Oh, I'm sorry. I said it was on the left side of my room. It's actually the outlet on the right side of the room. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and get that fixed." So again, those are just a couple of silly examples that come off the top of my head, things that I've actually probably encountered more than once over the years. And this is going to save you a lot of time and hassle. Section 2, additional ways to streamline processes with automations, lease renewals and expirations. This one is a big one, just like rent collections, because if you do not have rent coming in, then what's the point of having a rental property? And so you want to make sure that you are constantly on top of lease renewals and expirations. And part of that is to make sure that when you have a tenant that has a lease that's going to be expiring soon in the next 30, 60, 90 days, you want to know about it, right? And so the TenantCloud system allows you to get notifications that, hey, this lease is going to be ending. There is also an ability to see that on your dashboard, showing you, hey, you have leases ending in the next 90, 60, 30, whatever days. You need to contact these people and get leases signed, renewals done, or you need to start marketing the rental unit. A common mistake that a lot of property managers make is that they will not start marketing a rental until 30 days or 15 days prior to the rental becoming vacant. Or they will let the tenants go right up until the last minute before they start marketing the rental. What we would do, and again, you would have to check in your specific region to make sure that it is according to your lease and state law, of course. But in the state of Texas, a lot of times what we would do is, yes, there was a minimum time frame you had to give a tenant, 30 days in our leases for renewal offers, but we would typically do it as far as 120 or even further out from the lease ending. Why? Because we were in a hot rental market, still kind of are. And so we had a lot of demand for our rentals. And so what we would do is we would offer an early renewal offer to the tenants to sign a lease renewal early. And that would get like 120 days. And then at 90 days, in that same letter that we initially sent out, it would say, this is good for the next 30 days. And then at 90 days, that rent offer, the early renewal offer went up and so on. And so it's important to get those notifications because if you're not even aware that your leases are ending, then you can't even begin to start that process and you're going to get caught in the last minute of scrambling to try to rent this unit out because your tenant just gave you a notice at 29 days or 31 days. And now you have days to get your rental leased back up again or risk losing income. And it's always cheaper to have a tenant stay to begin with. The turnover costs are exponential, especially now. There was just a recent report came out saying that the costs of turnovers has skyrocketed across the nation. Not in every area, but in many areas it has. And so it's a lot cheaper to keep a tenant. So any aspect of this process that you can keep automated and continue to improve on, the better. And so getting these automated notifications and automating this process in general is going to really help you to streamline your renewal process and your marketing process and your turnover process because you're going to know things a lot sooner because you get that notification at 90 days. You start the process. You already have tenants notice that they're going to leave at 45 days. You can already start inspecting the unit and lining up contractors to hit the unit the day that the tenant moves out and turns in keys. Boom, boom, boom. Everything is done quickly and efficiently. Financial reporting and budgeting. Automate financial reporting and budgeting tasks using tools from platforms, of course, like TenantCloud. This is a TenantCloud webinar, saving time and providing accurate financial insights. And a lot of property managers who I have spoken with in support over the years use TenantCloud to do just that, but not for themselves. They also do it for their owners and their service providers because there are reports that can be accessed by service providers and by owners. Owners in particular, if I'm not sure if this is your experience, but in my experience over the years, it was not uncommon to get a phone call while I'm in the middle of something big from an owner who needs a specific report for a specific property or properties because they have a meeting with their board the next day or they're trying to do a refinance or whatever it is. And I have to drop everything that I'm doing and jump on that one thing so that I can then get them the information they need. And then inevitably, that owner then has follow-up questions. Maybe they have issues with the document. Maybe I send them a PDF or an Excel file and they're having trouble loading it, or it's not in the format that they need it in, and so on. And so by allowing the owners to access their own reports and automating that on your side so you don't even have to think about it. You just click a couple toggles when you're setting up your account, and boom, your owners have all of the reports they need whenever they need them. They're live, they're updated. If you make a change on your side, it's updated automatically the next second when they pull the report. And so that right there eliminates a lot of hassle, a lot of interruptions, a lot of miscommunication, and it just saves you from not having to really communicate as much as you had to do before. And it streamlines the process in general for everybody because now the owner is a lot happier because they don't have to contact you every time they need a piece of information about their property. They can just log into their account and click on a report, set the parameters, pull the report, and boom, they're done. Of course, they might still have questions. Next, tenant screening and onboarding. Automating tenant screening processes using TenantCloud or similar software for faster approvals, reduced manual work, and a standardized onboarding experience. This is incredibly important for not just you, but also for that first impression for your tenants or your prospective tenants. Property managers using TenantCloud automated the tenant screening process. This resulted in faster approvals, reduced manual work, and a standardized onboarding experience. So make sure that when you are setting up your screening or your pre-screening or your customized questions on your application or whatever, however you want to set it up in the Tenant Cloud system, it's very flexible when you're setting up your tenant screening process and the application. And there's different types of questions you can ask. And again, if you have any questions about any of these things, this webinar is not necessarily a step-by-step instructional of how to do something. It's letting you know that you can do these things and there are ways that you can customize. If you have a unique way that you're trying to do your tenant screening process, you can do that in the Tenant Cloud system. And if you have specific questions about how to best set that up to meet your needs, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to our support team. They're more than happy to help you and to guide you through that process. But in the Tenant Cloud system, there are multiple ways you can set it up to streamline it and to make it easier. In every step of the process, the tenant can get notifications based on the activity that you're doing in the account. So, for example, if you view the application and you click approve because you've looked at everything, everything's good, the tenant's going to get a notification saying your application's been approved. Great. They've been notified, which is awesome. The faster you can screen a prospective tenant, the better. The faster that you communicate with a prospective tenant in general, the better. The statistics on communicating with prospective tenants is there's a lot of statistics on it. The faster you get to prospective tenants and the faster you get them into the application process and the touring process and the like, the more likely they are to become your tenant and not your competitor's tenant down the road. And so it's important that you streamline it, that the tenant gets notifications when things are happening, like they've been approved or they've been declined and the like. The one exception in Tenant Cloud is that we do not automatically send a FCRA decline letter or adverse action letter. That is something that because we don't know why you declined the applicant. So you do still need to send the prospective tenant a adverse action letter stating why they were declined because again only you would know that. We provide the resources to screen and the information and the background on the prospective tenant, but ultimately you're the one who makes the decision on whether or not you are going to approve them, and so you need to notify the tenant accordingly or prospective tenant accordingly. All right, we are running out of time. I'm going to fly through this a little bit faster. Apologies if I go too fast, but I do want to make sure that we cover as much of the important information in this presentation. And again, if you have any questions at the end, feel free to be posting them into the chat thread, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions in the chat thread as well as we begin to get into the second half of this presentation and wrap it up. Task automation for staff. We kind of touched on this already in the beginning, which is you can set up automated routine tasks for staff using Tenant Cloud. So, for example, you might have quarterly inspections, monthly inspections. You might have different things that your team has to do on a routine basis, whether it is clean the office room if you have an office, or cleaning the club room, or things of that nature. You can automate all of that stuff by setting up things such as equipment and equipment reminders. You can set up tasks for your team members. You can set up recurring maintenance tickets for your maintenance techs. You can do all kinds of stuff in the system to automate this part of your day-to-day management needs. So it's important to really become familiar with all of those things. One of what I feel like is probably an underutilized tools in the Tenant Cloud system is actually our equipment feature. And I make sure that I always touch on the equipments feature because it is an incredibly powerful tool. And they're actually about to release an update here shortly, if I haven't already this week, that is really going to make it even more powerful. And so definitely take a look at the equipments feature in Tenant Cloud. And if you're not using it right now, I highly recommend using it. I'll just give you one example of how it is helpful. One of the ways is you can put in all of the information about any piece of equipment or anything related to a property that you need. So, just for a simple example, let's say you replace a stove in a unit. That stove, you can record the height, the width, the depth, the color, the brand, the warranty information, when the warranty expires, if it's got a lifetime warranty, any maintenance that needs to be done on it on a yearly or semi-annually or whatever basis. And you can do that for every single piece of equipment in the property, from HVAC systems to microwaves to stoves to the roofing. If you need to keep track of roof warranties, roof replacements, all of that stuff. And any property manager who's been in the business for any amount of time knows you need to keep tabs on all of that stuff. And if you can automate it in any way, all the better. You have to do prorates on flooring because maybe you have carpet and that carpet has to get replaced when a tenant moves out. You need to know what the prorate is. You need to know if there's a warranty on it. You need to know when that warranty expires, when it was installed, in order to do your prorate calculations to charge the tenant accordingly if there was excessive damage to it. And so you can do all of that in the Tenant Cloud system just by utilizing that equipment feature. And so I hope that you check that out once this webinar has ended and start figuring out ways that you can implement that tool into your specific day-to-day routine. Vendor management. Automate vendor management using Tenant Cloud for scheduling, tracking maintenance tasks, managing bids, receiving automated alerts. We've again touched on a lot of this stuff, but this again is just specific to vendors. You can automate so much stuff when it comes to vendor management. This is your local handyman, this is your electrician, this is your plumber, this is anybody who you want to set up as a vendor in the Tenant Cloud system, and you can receive all kinds of automated alerts. They can submit bids through the Tenant Cloud system. You can submit those bids to the owners and get automatically notified once the owner has reviewed the bids and decided which ones they want to approve, and so on and so forth. It creates a much more efficient and transparent process with far less back and forth communication or miscommunication between you and the service provider and the tenant and the owner, because all that communication can happen simultaneously between the different parties. So, for example, if a tenant submits a maintenance request and it needs outside assistance to resolve it, you can assign it to a vendor. You can then allow that vendor, if you want, to communicate with the tenant through the TC Messenger. They can chat with the tenant and say, hey, I'm planning on stopping by at such and such time. Will you be available? What's the alarm code? Do you have pets? They can put that into the ticket if they want to. And all of that information is contained and is stored for historical records, and it just makes things a lot easier. I wish that years ago I had a tool like this, because we did not. We actually used one of the top property management softwares in the industry not that many years ago, and it did not have even this type of functionality. So I would have loved to have had this type of functionality back then. Section 3, pro tips for success. Tailor automation features to match specific workflows for seamless integration. Those are a lot of words that may not make a lot of sense, but basically, you want to make sure that you are adopting the software in a way that makes sense for your operations. There are not going to be two operations that are going to operate alike. Everybody does things slightly differently. Everybody has different ways that they like to do things. And on the Tenant Cloud platform, we try to make things as simple as possible for people to set it up in a way that makes sense for their business. Now, of course, there are some things that have to be rigid based on the structure, but in general, you want to try to adopt the software into your day-to-day flow, your day-to-day routine. And sometimes you may find that the software, even where it is more rigid than in other places, that it actually, by adopting the reverse, adopting your day-to-day routine to the software, actually makes things a lot easier and simpler for yourself. So just make sure that you are looking at all of the features that we talked about so far. from applications to the customizing the application to the automation of the maintenance tickets to the equipment feature tools to the task reminders and the communications with the tenants and the service pros and the owners and the reports that you can automate for your owners. And the list goes on. Just make sure that you are taking a deep dive and really understanding each of those tools. And again, don't hesitate to lean on our support team, especially to get through that initial learning curve, trying to understand the different features and the powerful functionality that they offer. As we introduce new features and tools this coming year, like I mentioned, we're actually about to roll out an update. I don't know if they updated it this week yet. I believe it's coming out this week or next week. It's going to be a powerful update to the equipment feature tool, and there's going to be a lot of really cool new features that they're going to incorporate into there. Mostly have to do, I think, with like the filters and the like. And I've already gotten a preview of it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. We release a lot of updates throughout the year, and this coming year is going to be no exception. There's going to be a lot of new added value in the system, and so I hope that you are excited for that functionality. There are a lot of things we haven't even touched on, things like calendar sync that can also streamline your business. Regular software updates and training. This goes back to if you want to make sure that you are invited to future events like this or special webinars. We are looking at a lot of ways to provide additional resources through webinars and through podcasts and YouTube videos this coming year. And so make sure you are subscribed through our email list by going to tenantcloud.com/blog and subscribe via the box right there as you scroll down that page. And you will get communication about any special upcoming events or training materials, webinars, and anything else that we put together. If there's something that you would like to see, or maybe there are areas of training that you would like to get, feel free to communicate with us and let us know. One of the things that I always make sure I cover in the webinars is that I believe every year around 70%, at least for the past few years, it's consistently been about 70% of all of the improvement to the software has been a direct result of user feedback. How do you get involved in that? You submit a support ticket. We have, when you click the support button on the bottom left-hand corner of your account, it takes you to a page where you can submit a ticket. And there's an idea ticket or a support ticket. If you click the idea ticket, that gives us your feedback on the platform and what you would like to learn, or if the way that you think we could improve a feature, or maybe there's a feature you feel like we're missing, you can put in your feedback, and that does get taken into consideration by our product management team. And like I said, I believe around 70% each year of user feedback is directly incorporated into the updates that we roll out throughout the year. Security and data protection. TenantCloud never sends the content of a message via email. Your contacts only receive notifications stating that something has been communicated or posted in their account. I know that a lot of property managers want things to be sent out in the body of an email or in the body of a text. And that is one of the things that TenantCloud does not do, but for a reason. A lot of the information that you as a property manager are communicating to your tenant is for the tenant's eyes only. And so what we do is we send a notification saying, hey, you received a notice from the landlord. Hey, you had an invoice published on your account. Hey, you got a property message board notice on your account. Click here to view it. And it takes them into their secure account so that they can view the information that's been shared with them and only them alone, not somebody who may have stolen their phone or is sitting at their desk, a roommate at their computer, and sees that they got a notification about something specific to them and like. So we do prioritize making sure that that information is not just shared with everybody. Scalability. Keep in mind that if you need to do things like add team members, increase storage, we can facilitate and support your growth as you grow. Hopefully, as you automate, it allows you to focus on the things that allow you to grow your business and to scale up. And TenantCloud also provides the resources for you to scale up. Over the years in support with TenantCloud, I've been with TenantCloud for going on something like 6 years or so now. I've spoken with a lot of users, and I cannot tell you how many users I've spoken to who have gone from managing no units. Literally, they call us and are inquiring about our software because they're considering getting into property management. And then I see them create accounts, and then I see them go from 1 unit to 5 to 50 to 100, and they just continue to grow. And Tenant Cloud can facilitate that for you as you grow, as you automate your operations, and you can really focus on the things that matter to help you scale your business. Communication and transparency. Maintain open communications with your tenants, owners, and service pros to foster trust and understanding while automatically retaining records of all communication on the Tenant Cloud platform. This, again, we've harped a few times throughout this presentation, but Tenant Cloud keeps all of that information automatically. All of the communication in Tenant Cloud stays in Tenant Cloud, and you don't have to scramble around looking for it in different places. Adhere to legal requirements, especially regarding tenant screening and data privacy, much of which is largely automated on Tenant Cloud. You don't even have to think about a lot of it. Things like the application being submitted, or them paying an application fee, or them paying through our payment processor system. All of that stuff is happening automatically. They're automatically getting the proper notices. They're getting the proper receipts. The exception, again, is the adverse action notice, which you must inform the applicant as to why the rental application was declined and inform them of their rights under the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And of course, you want to make sure that you're adhering to any local or state laws that may be special or unique to your area. Backup and recovery. Tenant Cloud does this automatically. A lot of people ask us. That's one of the first questions they ask when they contact us about the Tenant Cloud platform for the first time is, what does your backup look like? What does your security look like? It's through Amazon services, and it is automatically backed up in multiple locations through multiple servers. However, there are people, and I understand, who want to periodically export their account data, which we can do in the Tenant Cloud feature. In fact, this is another update that we're about to roll it out to make it easier to do that and to get the specific information that you want out of your account at any given time and retain a copy outside of Tenant Cloud if you need to. But if you don't need to, don't worry about it because Tenant Cloud is retaining that data. Treat automation as an ongoing process, regularly reviewing and refining automated routines based on efficiency and feedback. If something is not working, look at ways that you can improve it, and always stay up to date with any updates that we're doing in the Tenant Cloud system. Like I let you know, we're doing the update on the equipment tool. Make sure that you check that out when it's released. You'll probably get a notification in your account and maybe through email. And make sure you check out the additional update that we're doing on the exporting data if that is of interest to you. That wraps up this presentation. Property management software is not just about saving time, but enhancing your operations, as well as providing an added layer of CYA. By staying proactive, adaptable, and focused on continuous improvement, you can fully harness the potential of automation in property management software. All right, that wraps up the presentation. To go through here and look and see if there are any questions that have come through. If you have any questions that are super pressing that you would like to get answered, feel free to post them in the chat thread. For everybody, thank you for attending. I understand I've gone way over the time limit, I think by like 18 minutes or so. So apologies for that. Hopefully everybody got helpful information out of this presentation. Let's see. See if there are any questions we have here. DocSign tool a little more clean on appearance after signing electronically. That is a fantastic idea. Yes, I would highly recommend putting that in as an idea ticket because our product team loves getting that type of feedback. So if there's something specific that you would like to see changed on it, our team loves getting that feedback because it makes their job easier in improving it the way that users would like it to be done. Does it send to all properties? I believe that this is probably related to the TC property message board, if I'm not mistaken. If that's the case, you can actually select which properties that the messages go to. So if you want to send it to just one property or 3 properties or all properties, or you only want to send it to certain types of tenants with certain statuses at a certain property, like um, active leases, for example, or whatever, you can select that in the Tenant Cloud system. You can send stuff. You can pretty much break it down however you need to send property message boards. Let's see. I think that is on the maintenance request. Is there a way to create of common issues for future reference instead of searching full ticket database? That's a fantastic idea. I don't know that I've actually ever heard or seen somebody recommend that. There is a trending topic list on the help center that you can access, um, but there's not a way that you can personally customize that. So that's the thing that I would highly recommend putting into a idea ticket in the platform for our product management team to take a look at. That's actually a really, really good idea. I really like that one. Who is the best contact for creating monthly statements for owners? So I would, if you have specific questions about how to generate specific reports, definitely feel free to contact our support team. You can contact them via the phone number, the 800 number listed in the footer of the website, and reach out to them if you have specific questions about the different types of reports and which one might have the information you're looking for. As well, keep in mind each report, when you go to the reports tab, it'll actually have a short description with a quick outline of what each of the different types of reports offers. So you can go through and look and see, okay, this report has X, Y, and Z on it, and this one has this, and this one has that. Do the receipts for rent get sent automatically when we mark it as paid, or do we have to do it manually? So when you mark it as paid, the tenant automatically gets notified. So anytime there's a significant change like that in the platform, chances are the tenant's getting notified. But especially when it comes to invoices, so they can also see that in their account. When they log in, they'll see that the invoice has been updated live as it happens. So if you updated an invoice now and then the tenant logs in a second later, they're going to see that in their account, that invoice has been marked as paid as well. Let's see. Will the presentation be shared as a copy for reference? I'm planning on automating my operations, but I would like to go back to the offers discussed today to lay out my plan. Yes. So we have the recorded version. If I'm not sure if you're asking for the actual PDF version, but we would be able to share that with you if you would like actual slides. But you can also access the video at any time through our YouTube channel. We're going to upload it there. That's the place that most people go to view the recording. It looks like that's all the questions that have come through. So again, thank you to everybody who has taken the time out of your busy schedule to join this presentation. Again, I realize that not a lot of this information is rocket science, but hopefully you did find the information that was shared was valuable, and you can implement some of these things into your day-to-day routines and make your life a lot easier and scale your business and grow it, because that's what we're all trying to do. So again, thank you for joining this presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the TenantCloud platform.